in the future, hi, none of us have drank coffee, and it's like 10 o'clock y'all's time. This is GJ. I'm the host of this. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Nikoda.
And Dakota's mysterious.
I mean,
Yes.
that's all you need to know. I'm Nikoda.
Yes,
I'm one of the
always.
editors. I'm one of the editors, and I have the story Mind Games in Saudade.
And I'm Duke. I guess I'm an editor. Yeah. And I.
We are so good at
And
this.
Fantastic. We're just full of hubris. No, I'm an editor, and I have the story Evergreen in Saudade.
Okay.
Can I just add that Duke is completely selling himself short, and he has basically done all of our business stuff, and we can have business stuff without him. Thank you.
Okay, since we're gonna hype up other people and also like list our accomplishments in this, I'm GJ. I wrote the short story Echoes in this particular anthology, and I'm gonna hype up Nikoda because this story absolutely would not have been done without you just like proverbially standing over my shoulders saying, no, add more, make it more sad, like do all the things, like write this. So this story would not have existed without you just like constantly telling me like, oh, you can do this, oh, you can do this.
Oh, well, okay, we can end the interview here because that's a very high note. Thank you.
Okay, so first question, how did you guys get started, and like where did you come up with the name like Critical Mass Rocket Works?
I knew you were going to ask that.
Of course I was.
Because I was actually talking to Duke about that last night, and I was like, I bet, in my head, I was like, I bet she's going to ask her we came up with the name. All I remember is that we were working on We Had Stars once, and we're actually working with 1889 Labs to get it off the ground. And then 1889 Labs was kind of like, well, you guys are pretty good at this. Why don't you just do your own thing? And we were like, what? Okay. And so then we were like, I guess we need a name. And so I honestly, I cannot for the life of me remember. It was like 10 years ago at this point, I think.
It was longer than that.
So yeah, so we just kind of sat around and talked and everything. And I do vaguely remember having a conversation with Coco that went along the lines of, we're on the verge of exploding all the time. And so I was like, so we were like, what about, critical mass? Because we're always on the verge of that. And then we were like, but we need more than that. Because there's actually I think it's a marathon group or like bicyclists or something. And they have like a nationwide group called Critical Mass. And so we couldn't just be that, because then we'd have all these bicycle/marathon people like, hey, what are you doing? This is ours.
This is our turf.
Right, and we never hear the end of it. So, plus we wanted something that would make a cool logo, because let's be real, logos are a big part of things.
Logos are like half of it.
Right, so we were like, what would have a cool logo? And I think Edifice Complex, our graphic guy for We Had Stars once, already kind of had like this rocket logo he was working with something else, and we were like, hey guy, what if? And they just all kind of came into that, and then it became Critical Mass Rocket Works, and we got a really cool logo out of it, and we even paid the man for the logo, which is astonishing because we're broke.
Because I want to say there was also there was some discussion with, like, we were all kind of talking about, okay, well, what's what are we doing here? Like, what are we editors? Are we publishers? Are we authors? Are we all everything together? And so I think we were not only talking about, well, space is always cool, but we were also talking about, right, space is always cool. But we were also talking about, well, we're all these different things together, and individually, like, we all have, strengths and weaknesses, but when you put us all together, we complement each other in such a way that we reach this critical mass of awesomeness. And I
Aw.
think that's where the first part of it came. And then the second part, of course, was like, well, we can't just be critical mass. That's weird. That sounds like we're some sort of like nuclear explosion. And so then we were like, well, space is always cool. What about, and how do you go to space? We go to space in a rocket. And that was kind of the.
Okay, we apologize to any Portuguese listeners who might stumble across this. None of us speak Portuguese.
Forgive our ignorance.
But how would you define Saudade or Saudade, and what made you decide this was going to be the theme for this anthology?
We are very much into words. We say, shade and fraud
Yeah.
constantly. And it was just a concept that we felt doesn't get explored very often outside of the culture where it means something.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to bring that to other folks who maybe would not have any concept of it, who would benefit from learning about it, because they're sitting there going, I have this feeling and I don't understand it.
Right.
And it is, I'm trying to be in my feelings and I'm trying to process everything, but I can't, and I don't understand how. So we were hoping that by having this and introducing this to folks outside of that culture, they might find a way to process and a way to understand that side of their humanity.
Okay. Now, Duke, how would you how would you describe Sauda? I know it's one of those big words that it doesn't have a clear English translation to it, but, as one of the editors, how would you describe it to any newcomers to this anthology?
That's a great question. 'Cause one of the things about Saudade is that it doesn't actually have a direct English translation. As close as we can get, as close as we can, kind of get the feeling or what the meaning of the word from Portuguese to English is, it's a deep sense of loss or longing. One might say melancholy. Not necessarily like oh man, remember back in the good old days, although there's a little bit of that. I think it's even more poignant, even more sad than that. It's not just, oh, remember the good old days. It's remember like how we felt in this moment when everything was, great. And so there's a little bit of, rose-colored glasses going on, because as we all know, the good old days weren't so good.
No.
But there's we all have fond memories. And we that's just one of the things that make us human, are being able to remember things, remember the way we felt, the way, maybe words that we said, who we were with, even, smells, tastes, things like that, sensations, from long ago, or even yesterday. The word Saudade tries to capture all of that. That entire experience, that entire, hey, remember when, remember when we were a kid and we would, hang out at grandma's house and they had the box full of misfit toys that we could always play with, that were always, for whatever reason, way better than the toys that we had at home. It was, that sort of thing. And, oh, we don't have, grandma isn't here anymore, and those toys got lost to the winds, and man, wouldn't it be great if, now that I have kids of my own, if they could have that experience, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's inherently, both like kind of hopeful and deeply depressing at the same time, because that's, the again, like the way that what's captured in this word for Portuguese people is all of these feelings, all of these emotions, all of this, kind of captured in time, like a snapshot of whatever they were feeling, whatever they were doing, that you can't get again. You can't reproduce it. That will never be. You will never have that again. And so that's kind of the theme that we wanted the authors, and I think they did a fantastic job at at pulling off. That's the theme we wanted them to kind of base their stories in, because that's the theme of the book, and that's what we wanted to evoke.
Yeah, I was thinking about how would I describe this to someone, and like for some reason all that's in my head is just like Springsteen or like John Cougar Melloncamp, and just like it was the summer of '69, and it's not quite that. It's less like top 40 and more like
kind of like a longing for a memory.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's not enough to just like remember it. Like you have to have like the feeling, the smells, all of that when there's no returning to it. Like, yeah, the old family home might still be there, but they renovated it from the top down, and so it's not that same feeling anymore.
That's kind of a good way to put it. It is almost the adage, you can't go home again.
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of the stories and how you said that like you feel like the writers nail this concept, which as one of the writers, thank you. What made you pick these particular stories?
They made us sad. I mean, ultimately, we no, I'm serious. So we went through, and I'm kind of a crier, but I'm not much of a crier. Coco cries at the drop of a hat. So it was kind of like, okay, what makes Coco cry, and what makes me either almost cry or cry,
right?
Or think about crying, and so that's kind of how we came to that. And it also was a measure of, do we see more potential for sadness in these stories, and do we feel, I know that sounds so awful, and do we feel like we can get it out of these writers without completely breaking them? Yeah, a couple might become alcoholics, but they won't, want to jump off a bridge or something. So what can we do? Because I do remember having conversations with Coco and Duke going, this isn't sad enough. We need to make it sadder. They need to make this sadder. Who wants to tell them, talks with the writer about they're not depressing enough, and tell them you gotta dig deeper and you gotta bring it, So it was weird, but it worked, and you guys made some really awesome, super sad stuff.
I definitely cried while writing mine.
I can see that. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah. Yeah, and just I would also say, in addition, that because when we first did this, I mean, it was I'm a different person in a certain sense than I was then.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously a lot has happened, and in kind of revisiting the stories to get them formatted for digital publishing, I reread them, and I don't think I actually cried. However, they were really sad, and my story actually wasn't part of the original group. I had written that story after we did it initially. I think it was after, and it wasn't as sad as it ended up being, because Nikoda edited it for me, and basically she was like, "Well, this is fine, but it's not sad enough. Make it sadder." And then I went back and I made some tweaks, and then she was like, "Okay, it's getting there. It still needs to be sadder." And so, with her help, it became what it is in the book. And that was, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago. And then when we were actually like, yeah, this is legit happening, you guys, we're going to do this Kickstarter for reals this time. We were like, wait, the book needs a foreword. Who are we going to get to write the foreword? Because it can't be one of us. Like, that's lame. So it is. so we were like, okay, well, we had someone in mind, but they were just too busy. And not to say that we went with our second choice, because they still did a phenomenal job. So we actually went to Brent Fisher, who is a comic book writer and comic book lover. Although
right.
I think by far Brent is fantastic. They wrote us a really good forward.
Right.
But the first draft, it was, and I sent them the book, and I was like, hey, here's the book. Here's what we're going for. We know you have experience with this feeling. We want your take on it. And they sent us back the first draft, and it was fine, but it was very, and Nikoda knows what I mean when I say this, it was very Brent. It was like a poem written by someone who wanted to use every $10 word in the thesaurus.
Very purple prose.
Absolutely. And it wasn't bad. I don't get me wrong. It was not bad. It was very, it's exactly what Brent writes. Yeah. Brent is a fantastic writer. That's not what we wanted.
Right.
We wanted Saudade. We wanted Brent's take on Saudade. We wanted something that fit with the rest of the story, with the rest of the book. But we were like, okay, wait, hold on. Here's what we say when we wanted something that matched the book, because they were like, look, your book isn't written to a simplistic level. That's why I thought, I could use the language that I use. And we were like, no, it's not written to a simplistic level as far as emotional intelligence goes. It is to a reading level that is on par with, the daily newspaper. There's not a lot of words in there that you would have to look up, is what I'm saying.
More Jane Austen, less Bronte.
Correct. Absolutely. And so that we tried to get Brent to understand that, and I think they did. And then I was like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to just this first attempt, put it aside. Don't work on that anymore. I want you to give me your unadulterated, unfiltered, because they lost their dogs about 6 months ago.
It's so sad. Oh my gosh.
So sad, because they were like litter mates, and they lost them within 2 weeks of each other.
Right.
Yeah, Hansel and Gretel. They were so cute.
I know you have this in you, Brent. You're still grieving. You've got this, man. And so I was like, what I want you to do is I want you to give me that raw, unfiltered emotion. I want you to bleed on that page. And then
that's what we want. We want our writers to bleed on the page. If you're not bleeding on the page, I don't want to look at what you're writing.
Again, as one of your writers, I can attest to this.
And so I told them, and they were like, okay, I can do this. And they came back, and no notes. It was perfect.
You didn't have to edit it or anything. Just boom, done. I almost cried because I actually like pets. So it made me think of, the pets I've lost over the years.
Yeah.
I was like, this is sad. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, 100%. 100%. Brent got it on the second try. And so that's kind of what, to bring it all back to your original question, I didn't cry with the original stories. I did with Brent.
Yeah, it was rough. So.
Okay, so lighter question, because I'm curious about this. Because this is an anthology. This isn't like a straight up novel where it has a beginning, middle, and end. This is an anthology with a lot of different stories in it. How exactly do you place the stories in the anthology? Did you do it in alphabetical order, or did you do it in as a playlist where one leads into the other one?
We tried to organize it so that it wasn't gonna just be a constant
downer.
Yeah, a constant
constant
downer.
Elevator dropping straight into
right.
the pit of despair.
Yeah, because we want people to actually, as sad as the stories are, we do want people to enjoy the book. So what we did was and it was tricky for this one. I'm not gonna lie, because it was everything is sad. It was kind of like, okay, this one's super sad, and this one is profound sad, and it almost became this like different categories of sad, and we organized according to, at least we hope we did, according to, okay, I can read this, and then this one's the breather, and then I'm ready for this one now.
Okay, breather definitely needs some quotation marks around that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you're not really gonna breathe much. I mean, you will, but you won't. We hope, and we hope we ended it on a decent. Do you remember We Had Stars once? We ended with David Carr's story, and it made everybody go, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." We're hoping that this will be the same way, because it has, to us, which might make no sense to anybody, but it has the same kind of feel to us, like the same kind of quality and the same kind of whoa.
That same like wow factor.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So, because we always want to end on a high note,
Right.
even if it's a sad one.
Yeah. So you just mentioned your last anthology, We Had Stars Once. So what are the challenges of doing an anthology that doesn't have a theme versus Saudade, where it not only has a theme, but it has such a distinct theme to it?
Oh my gosh. Well, so either way, you're hurting cats, right?
Yeah.
But it's with the randomness of We Had Stars Once, it wasn't just cats. It was, or just like domesticated cats. There was a Bengal tiger, and we've got some extinct thing that just showed up out of nowhere, and it's like, hey, I wanna do what the modern kids do, and you're just like, what? But if we Had Stars Once was a couple of the authors, I'm not gonna name names, but they were like, how can you understand how to write my type of story when you're this kind of writer?
Right.
And you don't, and you don't focus on this type of story. No, we don't write your type of genre, but we still understand it. Like, I'll just use this as an example. Like, we don't have any romance in We Had Stars Once. I'm not a huge fan of romance books, and I mean, if you are, great, I don't care, but none of us are huge fans of romance books. I don't know if we're actually like aromantic type people or what, but it's not our bag.
Right.
But we still know how to write it, and we know how to edit it, because a story at the end of the day is still a story and still follows a formula. And yeah, when you get into other genres, you do have to adjust for those genres, but the thing with us is we don't write them, but we've studied all of them.
Yeah, we're definitely students
right.
of the art form.
Right. So we have a technical understanding of pretty much everything, and then we also have, for lack of a better phrase, a technical understanding of how to write a book and how to write a story. So, but it was just a lot of convincing people that, yeah, it's all over the place, but your story is safe with us. And then with Saudade, it was a little easier because maybe I'm making an assumption here. You can correct me if I'm wrong. But because it was distinct idea, and it felt like we were helming it and we were directing it, it almost was like the writers could feel more secure that we knew what we were doing. And
right.
They didn't have to sit there and go, do they really know how to write this? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that we didn't really, as tricky as the understanding the theme of Saudade, which again, as we discussed, doesn't have a direct translation into English. As tricky as that was, it definitely was more of this is a strong theme, and even if you don't fully understand the meaning of the word, you can get behind us on it, and you can put something together that, I mean, for real, I don't know that any of these writers have ever written this sort of thing before.
I definitely can.
Right. So it's like, I think that was a little part of it too. It was, not only was it a strong theme that they could all rally behind us on, and there was no, like Nikoda said, there was no, do you even know how to write this, you guys? There wasn't any of that. It was also, well, hell, I don't even know how to write this, so I'm taking my cues from these guys. So yeah, I think it was definitely easier in that respect, even though it should have been harder, given that the theme was so obscure and so difficult to understand. The authors got it basically immediately, and they delivered some stellar stories.
Well, I think too, and this isn't a dig on the We Had Stars Once authors, but the Saudade authors are very emotionally intelligent.
Correct. Facts.
I mean, it's true. And we are emotionally intelligent enough as editors that we can fake it. So, so it helped us understand the concept, and it helped us lead the writers where we needed you to go. But it did at the end of the day come down to, are you bleeding on the page? And that in a way made it easier, actually, because it was hyper focused, and that was great because it wasn't all over. and this was kind of exhausting, but in a different way. It was just emotionally exhausting. Like there was a few days where we were like, I gotta take a minute because I'm not doing great right now. But it was easier to overcome than just a constant barrage of, oh my gosh, is this gonna end? Are we gonna see the end point? Knew there was gonna be an end, and we trusted you guys just as much as you trusted us.
Oof. I was absolutely following your lead on it because of the fact that it's such a big concept that we only had a set amount of word count to nail that. So we didn't have enough time to like worry about other things. So oof. So what have been some of the high points during all of this? So what has been some of the stuff that the stress and the planning and wrangling writers and deadlines? What has made it all worth it?
Seeing the rough drafts turn into what they became. There's nothing that makes me feel more accomplished or just better as a human even than knowing that I helped somebody do their very best at something, and it looks amazing.
I think coming to the kind of, well, not really end. It's really more of the actual beginning of the project as far as Kickstarter goes. But I think kind of seeing everything come together and coalesce into the Kickstarter project, which only maybe 5 or 6 people have actually seen the finished page right now. It goes live tomorrow, by the way, May 1st, May Day. Mark your calendars.
Be there, be square.
Be there, be square, absolutely. I've been kind of working behind the scenes and trying to get, with the help from a couple of other people. I don't want to say I've done this alone because I haven't. But I've been kind of working behind the scenes to get the project page put together. It's got fancy graphics on it now that I could have never done by myself. It's got a kick-ass video that, again, I never could have edited and put together by myself. Even the cover, while I did most of the cover, again, I got some final assistance with it that made it even better than what I had done. Not totally not tooting my own horn there in any way, because I looked at the cover we had, from 10 years ago, and I was like, this is fine. But one, we don't have a big version of it, so it's not going to work anyway. The original artist is MIA, and we can't get in contact with him.
Right.
And I don't know how to start from this and make something that's usable, so I'm just going to start from scratch. How hard can it be?
Famous last words.
Right. And so I actually managed to get a decent cover put together that I thought was okay, and which is saying something, because I hate everything I make. If you've ever seen, there's a internet meme where it's like two perspectives, one from the perspective of the artist going, well, this is terrible, I'm just going to make another one. And it's the artist is making a cake, and then the audience is going, holy shit, 2 cakes. So yeah, I am an artist in that meme. But so I put together that I thought was okay, and then I got some assistance with it and turned it into something that is phenomenal. so the cover is great, and so kind of seeing that the project, the people that we've got on this project, like not just the graphic artists that I had help with the design of the page, but actual factual artists, not the graphic artists, not actual factual artists, but like comic book artists, graphic novelists, internet artists who small businesses who put their stuff online and make enough to pay for probably their products. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so kind of seeing that all come together over the past maybe couple of days, couple of weeks, and now that it's ready to go out there, I know I still don't have breathing space because now I actually have to run the project, but having that and being like, it's done and ready to hand over to the public is really cool. It definitely feels like it was worth it. I don't have a regret that it's like, man, I put all this work into it and now still hot garbage, because I think it's really, really good.
So the anthology got delayed for various reasons. But what do you think have been some of the positives in all of that in waiting these past few years?
I think we're in a better place now to just do this in general, because we have connections now that we didn't have previously. And as much as it sucks to say, it does help who you know. It really does. And I think it would have been fine before. It would have been successful enough. We would have gotten by. But with the current one, doing it now, I believe it will be very successful, and hopefully the universe isn't going to go ha ha ha. Yeah, and it's just we're just in a better space to do this kind of professionally as well, because at least for, obviously we can't speak for Coco because she's not here, but at least for myself and Duke, we have gotten our day jobs nailed down to a point where we can do things on the side and not wreck ourselves, which is so important. And ideally, we will get to a point where this is all we do. Like, we would love that. That would be amazing.
That would be
But until
great.
then, right? But until then, eating is important, and so is having a house to live in.
Yeah.
And things like that. And those things are expensive. And we did, I will say this, when the market in Seattle went absolutely nuts, we did briefly contemplate, we could sell our house and just go buy a house in Indiana outright.
Pay the property taxes.
Right, just pay the property taxes. But then we were like, but then we'd have to live in Indiana.
Then we'd have to live in Indiana. Nobody wants to live in Indiana.
That's the problem, is,
Apologies to anyone from Indiana listening.
Hey, even the people that live in Indiana are like, I really don't know.
And honestly, if the people who live there are very offended by what we're saying, I don't think they're our audience.
Putting that out there.
You know what I mean. So we did as close as we could to that in Washington, but it's still expensive to live in Washington. Like, there's no cheap. Well, okay, there is a cheap place to live in Washington, but it's like Indiana and Washington, so nobody wants to live there. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm taking a. So I forgot what I was saying. Help me.
The positives in the project being delayed.
So we are in a better place to do what we need to do and what we can do, and because of being in a better place, once this one is successful, we can just launch into the next one instead of having to sit around and go, well, do we have the time? Do we have the spoons to do our day-to-day stuff and this?
Yeah.
And now the answer is, yep, we sure do, which is awesome.
That's great. Yeah. What about you, Duke?
To kind of echo some things that Nikoda said, personally, definitely in a better place now, because when we were doing this, 9-10 years ago, I believe I was actually still working in Seattle, but yet we were living in a suburb of Seattle, and so in order to get to work on time, I had to be up before 6. I was out of the house by like 6:45 at the latest. Then I would be home again, probably 7 at the earliest.
God.
Yeah. So I mean, and then it's like, okay, well, it's time to eat and maybe have some, 15 minutes of quality time with the fam, and then it's time to go back to bed and do it all over again.
Right.
There was no time to do literally anything else. It was my job, and it was commute, and of course sleep. So if I wanted to do anything else, the job couldn't suffer. I couldn't change the commute, and there was only certain things you can do while riding on the bus. Guess what had to go if I wanted to do something else? Sleep.
Ooh.
Guess what you really can't do without. So, yeah, there was really no way I could have done anything like what I've done in the past 4 to 6 months with this project 10 years ago. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And that's just on the personal level. On the professional level, yeah, absolutely. Like Nikoda said, I've got my day job now doesn't require me to be in person. I'm 100% work from home, which means I don't have a commute. My commute is going downstairs and logging onto my computer.
Right.
Takes all of 5. And because I am work from home, I've got my computer that I'm sitting at with my headset. And immediately to my left, I have my laptop. And so when there's not a call, when I'm not focused on actively helping a customer, I'm doing stuff on my laptop.
Right.
I'm working on the Kickstarter. I'm working on typesetting. I'm working on networking. I'm working on any number of things that I now have the time to do because my job doesn't actually require me to be working at my job for the full 8 hours that I'm clocked in.
Right.
No job does, let's be real, but it gives me the opportunity to take those downtime pieces and put them into, this work. The other thing is that also professionally, also like Nikoda mentioned, we have contacts that we didn't have before. I have on this project, we've got rewards from this guy named Mike Hawthorne, who you probably don't know him by name unless you're a big comic books fan. But if you're not a big comics book fan, I submit that you've probably heard of Deadpool.
It rings a bell. I think I've...
You've probably heard of Wonder Woman. You've really popping off right now. You've probably heard of Spider-Man.
Maybe.
You've probably Friendly Neighborhood.
Arachnid Man.
Yeah.
Man. Arachnid Boy.
I've heard a couple of his indie projects before.
Yeah.
You've probably heard of the goddamn Batman. Mike Hawthorne has drawn all of those folks. We've got artwork from Mike Hawthorne in this project.
Oh, man.
That if you back the Kickstarter, you can only get that artwork on our Kickstarter.
Right.
We know Mike Mother Effing Hawthorne. So we didn't know him 10 years ago. We know I got again, you probably don't know him by name, but JJ Lopez, who is another comic book artist based in Manhattan, who has worked on he's done comics for IDW, he's done comics several Kickstarter comics. He's a legit comic book artist, a fantastic artist. We're offering original art from JJ Lopez in this Kickstarter. He really thinks about like the essence of the character and like, okay, well, if you took this superhero and they were, suddenly thrust into the world of pro wrestling, what would their costume look like? He's got it like 100%. So I'm pretty sure he only agreed because I followed him on Twitter and I was like, this is awesome, dude. I really like this. You need to keep doing this. And if you ever decide to publish a collection of these, I'm right there with you. So when I reached out to him and I was like, hey, this is kind of a long shot, but would you be willing to do this? He was like, oh yeah, absolutely. I don't have a ton of time, so let's limit it to one. But yeah, I can totally do this for you. And I was like, that wouldn't have happened 10 years ago. I didn't have that connection 10 years ago. So all that to say, Yeah, absolutely. This is the positive of waiting this long is that we can actually do this now. We have a lot of really cool things that we can offer. Um, we have the forward again. Like, we didn't know Brent 10 years ago, so I mean, yeah, we probably would have been able to find someone to write the forward. But it maybe would not have been as good as it is.
Right.
I don't know.
Personally, I also know that I've gotten more shameless because years ago, I realized like, yeah, I have to promote this, but it's just like, yeah, hey everybody, could you do? Now I'm full like carnival barker. Like, give me my microphone, give me my soapbox. I would love a sparkly hat. Let's go. Hi, buy this. It's great. Tell your friends.
And I mean, I think that's a very good point. You do have to be comfortable shouting your own praises from a rooftop. And you can't go up to someone and go, hi, I don't want to be a bother, but could you maybe help me with, bye. You know, you got to be like, yo, buy this.
Yeah, this is great. Tell your friends. You want to be into like the next new thing before the next new thing becomes the next new thing. Buy this right now.
Right. Do this. Buy it. I'll shut up if you buy it. Will you buy
Yeah.
it? And then I'll shut up. Great. Thanks.
I'm thinking of my own self of just like, now I have a blog. Now I have friends who are Hugo winners. I have friends who do podcasts, and I'm seeing all the work that they are doing to promote their stuff. And so I have it better fixed in my head of like, okay, this is what I have to do to promote this, because of the fact of no one else is going to promote you as well as you can. Other people might be louder, but no one else is going to. This is all the reasons why this is great and why you should buy it as much as you can be for yourself. So I know that's definitely a personal change for me in the past 10 years since we've.
Yep.
Speaking of the Hugos, actually, has it occurred to you, because I think today is the last day to nominate things for the Hugo for 2022, but has it occurred to you that this can actually be nominated for a Hugo next year?
No.
It hadn't until right now. What? I'm sorry, what?
Hey, dream big.
But we're tiny.
Yeah, we're itty bitty. Like, we're nobodies.
We're little minnows in the pond. What are you talking about?
Listen, I asked that because of the fact that like one of the friends who I have who is a Hugo winner, like, though we are tiny, we can be fierce, and so it's definitely been a thing that has made me more hungry to get started and like promoting it, because I am even more adjacent to getting a Hugo. Disclaimer, trophies aren't everything. I am proud of my work. I am proud of all of us. But also trophy.
Shiny things are nice.
And like, I might still just make myself my own trophy for the fact that we got this done.
Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you for not only letting us just completely destroy you in the editing process, but also thank you for all. I gotta say, like, it was very, very refreshing and in a way kind of humbling in that when we finally got our crap together and we're finally like, hey, let's frickin' do this. It's been 10 years. Let's actually do it for real this time. And we reached out to all of the authors. They all responded within like 72 hours. And they were all so excited. And so like, holy crap, this is amazing. They're at different parts of their lives. Some of them aren't even writing anymore. And they were all still like, yes, absolutely, let's do this. I thought this was never going to happen, but now that you popped up again, 100%, I'm on board. What can I do? How can I help? And that speaks volumes about who they are, what their character is, and in some small way, the fact that we kind of gathered them all together and noticed something in them that not only did they have the capability to turn out amazing work, but that they're just solid folks, just quality people. And that's like, we did that. We brought these folks together. We put them in a book, and now Kickstarter backers willing. And not only is that book going to exist and be brought forth into the world, but they're going to get paid. holy crap, that's cool.
You don't even understand how stressful it's been for us that we're broke because we want to pay you guys. We're probably the only publishing company that actually wants to give their writers money, you know? And we want to pay you fairly. We don't want to just be like, well, I could pay you this, but I like yachts. So I'm not going to. You know, we know what the work is like, and we want you to get paid for it.
I think it really speaks to everybody at the Critical Mass Rocket Works team, though, because this was the first time that I had worked with editors, but you guys made me feel very taken care of. I didn't feel like I was browbeaten in any sort of way. It was always just I still have the email sent, like, of the original edits of just, like, because it was so inviting, it was so encouraging, it made me feel like I maybe knew what I was doing. And every time that, like, I sent an email that was even remotely doubting myself, you guys, like, squashed that really quickly of just like, how dare you doubt yourself, you magnificent nugget, you're beautiful. So
you know what's really funny? Every time I say something, I'm always like, well, they're gonna hate me now.
No, you were very protective of me against myself. That's why I came back, because of the fact that, like, I loved working with you guys so much, and you set such a high bar for any other people who I was going to work with in the future. Because of the fact that like everybody who I came forth with, I was like, yo, if they don't give me Nikoda vibes, if they don't give me Coco vibes, then, like, I might have to leave. And so, but yeah, you left such an impression on me, and I'm pretty sure you left such an impression on the other writers. Like, of course we all came back because of the fact that the energy is good, the work that we put out was amazing. Like, yeah, of course I wanted to be involved in this again.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I don't even know what to say.
Thank
you. I guess I could say thank you, yeah.
No, thank you guys.
Honest and sincere appreciation.
No, for real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. But, okay, so you guys talked about, like, your short-term goals for the anthology, which is getting it out there in people's hands and in their e-readers. And, of course, getting paid because food is nice.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, food.
You can't pay your rent with exposure, man. I've tried.
Right.
No, absolutely not. But, have you guys thought of any, like, long-term goals for this anthology of just where you might want this to be in, like, 2 years, in 3 years, if 10 years, if Elon Musk hasn't blown up the planet?
Right. There are so many things that we would love to do. Well, first and foremost, just the funding goal for the Kickstarter will pay the authors, but it's not going to pay them a lot. Like, it's absolute bare minimum, like, level of payment. It's like, hey, kid, good job. Here's a quarter. That's not.
It's my quarter. Give me.
Right. I mean, it's still a quarter. It's better than a penny, but it's still not great. So that's the absolute funding limit. The goal is to just be like, hey, here's something for your hard work and your patience over the past decade. We've got stretch goals that if we overfund, the authors get paid more. And we've got a goal. It's pretty lofty, but hopefully with the help of the folks that we've got working on this project and just the internet in general, that we can get there. We've got a goal to actually pay you guys a fair market rate. Above and beyond that, if we go crazy with funding, like if this thing absolutely blows up and maybe gets posted on like Reddit or something, I don't know, exceeds our wildest expectations, not only could we fund the next anthology, because we're not getting paid for this. Like we're paying the authors first. We're not paying ourselves until the authors are paid what they're due. If we raise enough money, then we'll pay ourselves. Then we can have some money to pour into the next anthology because we have so many ideas, y'all. We would also like to make this a physical book because right now it's just going to be digital through the Kickstarter. If we raise enough money, Or if we just kind of feel like it, we can be like, hey, you know what? This is what we're doing. We're finally for real doing this and gonna be publishers. We could probably afford out of our own pockets to make this a physical book, which would be phenomenal because we still have our copies of We Had Stars Once, and they feel so good. So having a physical edition of this book would be amazing. It would also be awesome if we could make this an audiobook. It's another connection we didn't have 10 years ago. An audiobook edition would be fantastic. What else? There was something else that I was thinking of when you asked this question, and now it's getting...
Well, one thing I wanted to do, and obviously we would need to get the okay from all the writers and everything, Gumroad, that website, where you can kind of name your price if it gets set that way. And I love the idea of at least putting the digital copy up on there with a kind of name your own price so that it's accessible to everybody. Because one of my things is I want everything to be accessible to everybody, because I remember being the kid sitting there watching people with even like a little bit more money than me getting to do things and experience things that I wasn't going to do.
Right.
There's no way. And I don't want to be a company that contributes to that if possible. So I would like to be able to do that with anything we publish, honestly. But
Okay.
You know, it would like I said, we've got so many ideas for future anthologies and like things that we could do as a small independent publisher. One of our core values as a publisher is we don't want your right.
yeah,
You created that. We didn't create that. We can give you a platform. We can give you an audience for your stuff, but we don't want your stuff. There's some folks out there. This is probably one of the worst kept secrets in the world, but small artists, small creators who are their own small businesses, they can't survive with just selling their own stuff.
yeah,
They have to have either a day job, and they're working for somebody else making stuff, and then in their off time they make and sell their own stuff, or they have a wealthy benefactor, i.e. a spouse or partner who
Right.
actually works at a day job and funds their dream.
or their
Like
parent, or
there is
take your pick,
right,
yeah.
whoever it may be, yeah, some sort of wealthy supporter who is paying for them to live while they create. So there is no small artist making creator-owned artwork, because that's important. You know, we're not talking about the independent comic book artist who has a contract with IDW. Also, RIP IDW. Like, sorry, they got the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
But you know the folks who are working with IDW, they're still working for somebody else.
Right.
IDW signing their paychecks. They're not. So the folks that have actual creator-owned products that are putting their own stuff out there and selling it, and every single cent of that comes back to them, they're not surviving on their own. So we want, as one of our goals, one of fundamental core values as a small publisher, is we want to do stuff with those folks, because we don't want your rights. Your rights are your rights. You made that. We didn't. We have no claim to that. What we will do is we'll work with you. We'll publish your stuff. We'll get your stuff out there, and you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to worry about the marketing or the promotion, or how am I gonna format this. In some cases, how am I gonna who's the publisher I'm gonna deal with to try and get this made into physical media, or what if am I gonna print it myself? Am I gonna go to Kinko's and run off this run off this printed manual and staple it and fill it out myself? Like, no, we want artists to make art. We'll handle everything else. Yeah, we'll get paid percentage of what we sell your stuff for, but at the end of the day, it's still your stuff. Like, we're not, once you make that agreement with us to say, yeah, here's my stuff I made, please sell it and give me money back, we're not going to keep your stuff. So it would be really cool if someday we could do that sort of thing with the kind of big names that we're coming into contact with that want to do more stuff with their creative owned properties and just can't because they have to have a day job.
Right. That sounds amazing.
I know, right?
That's a great long-term goal. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, that actually does answer like what my final question was. Can you give us a sneak peek of what the next anthology you're thinking about doing?
No spoilers.
No spoilers?
I'm joking.
No, actually, it's a funny story. I don't know if it's haha funny, but one of the artists that we worked with, or that we are working with on the Kickstarter for Saudade, is his name's Lane Lloyd, and he has a very, I will say, unique style. I really like it. I think everybody that has come into contact with his style really likes it. But it is definitely outside of the norm for like kind of standard, mass market comics. Let me tell you, the folks who are out there watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DC Extended Universe, they are not on board with Lane's style. Like, Lane is playing chess while they're still playing checkers. But we really like it, and we actually, in addition to offering some commissions of his with the Kickstarter, launches tomorrow.
Which starts tomorrow.
In addition to that, we actually already worked with Lane to create a cover for our next anthology. And without saying anything else, I will give you the theme of this next anthology. The theme is regrettable misadventure.
I like that.
Very excited about that. If Saudade does well, even if it doesn't, I mean, we're going to keep doing this.
We're stubborn.
This is too much fun. Yeah, we're way too stubborn. And this is also, like, it's actually fun now. Like, I had a lot of fun in the past 6 months, even in the times where I was like, this is too much work. I am so burnt. I don't want to look at another word on a computer screen for at least a week. I come back after the week and I'm like, all right, let's do this, because this is gonna, when it comes out the other side, it's gonna be amazing, and I'm gonna be like, this is some of my best work, even though I had to make 2 cakes. So I'm actually having fun. I don't know if anyone else is having fun, but I'm actually having fun, and it kind of, I'm at that point where, like I said, everything I make I still don't like. However, I have a good time doing it. So I'm going to keep doing this, if only because I can, even if like I said, even those times where it's like, this isn't fun, looking back at the entire experience, I've had a ton of fun the past 6 months.
I love that. I love the idea of doing something. We as humanity need to get back to doing things just because it's fun, and not for like for profit or for privilege or esteem, but because of the fact that we enjoy doing it.
100%. Yeah, I mean, if I didn't have to worry about making a paycheck so I could, put food on the table and make sure we don't lose the house, like, can you imagine how much stuff I would do? Like, I would never stop creating. It's like, 'cause it's fun. And like I said, even if I don't like what I make, which most of the time I don't, other people like it. Even if I don't think I'm good at the stuff I do, other people think I am.
Or at the least, you meet like really cool people while you're doing it.
Yes, totally, and like that collaboration aspect, like that's one of the reasons why it's been so much fun. Is I've been finding people that I like what they do, and I've been like, hey, would you mind if applied your considerable talents to our rinky-dink operation? And they're like, oh, hey, this is cool. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you guys do good work. And I'm like, really? Okay. Yeah,
right.
That's cool.
You start blushing and like...
Right? Please come work with us. We do good work. We totally don't. But yeah, we do good work. Yeah.
We do passable work. Don't so short.
We have fun while we do it. That counts for something.
100%. Yep, 100%.
All right. Well, that is all the questions that I had. Well, not all of them, but we could go on all day if I asked all the questions that popped in my head. But um, thank you, Nikoda and Duke, so much for sitting with me and talking with me. This has been great to everyone who is listening or reading the transcript. Thanks for sticking around. Saudade, the anthology from Critical Mass Rocket Works, the amazing minds that gave you We Had Stars Once. The Kickstarter for that starts May 1st, 2023. We have so many great goals. We have so many great prizes for all who wish to join in and participate. Be there, be square.